Do you know Final Stardust Cosmic Nexus, a deck building RPG that seems to take inspiration from Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! With 5 elemental types, many different cards, an evolution mechanic, a risk-reward health system, and more. In this video we'll be covering the review build before the early access release. In this game you control different planos, monsters whose type is dependent on their planet of origin, from the fiery damage dealers from Mars, the icy water world of Mercury, focusing on healing as the refreshing tides of Waterwood, the tactical windstorm of Jupiter, and the boulders of Venus that are mighty tanks. I'll probably get into them more in depth in a second video, but first let's talk about how in general that they affect each other. In the early access build as well as the final, there will be a chart explaining the strengths and weaknesses of one type over the others. For now though, the best I can do is tell you what I learned through my multiple playthroughs of the review build. The planos main color reflect their type. Each type is weak against another type and strong against others. For example, water is strong against ground, so the damage done is double, but water against the wind is weak, so the damage may be halved. Balancing those statistics will be a big part of the main game. Each element has an elemental master for their type. This is reminiscent of Kaijudo Rise of the Duel Masters, where the character would spend years mastering their type and achieve mastery because of it. Some characters can use multiple elements, such as you, the main character, so you are called an elementalist. The protagonist's name is Mephisto. I don't know much about him, but he comes off as your normal protagonist in these kinds of games and shows. In the review build, you play as other characters besides him, leaving him a mystery to be explored in the full game. The antagonist is also an elementalist, a genius named Nevisto, and he's the negative to your positive. What caused him to be the villain is a mystery as well. He's your twin and yet your polar opposite. It's an intriguing premise at the very least. Their names will be different in the English version according to the Kickstarter page for punctuational purposes. If they can make what is changed an option, like the Knights of the Cross did, then I believe that would be best. So you can play with the original names, but in your native language. The last character that I need to bring up is Fenrir, a unique plano that has an evolution in each type that can be useful in any situation and any deck because of it. His evolution will be dependent on your elemental stars, which acts sort of like a gym badge, mixed with a mega evolution stone, showing off your progress and strength while also granting powers to you as well as Fenrir. The full scope of this wasn't available in the review though, so that's all I can say for now. There is a type that I didn't bring up yet, the Dark type, which is a super rare version of every monster that acts like a shiny in the game, but how that affects each one in terms of dark abilities and how the type clashes with the others is still yet to be seen. There is supposed to be a shop where you can buy card sleeves, playmats, and decks. Whether it will be microtransaction based or in-game currency based is unknown to me. Limited character customization is supposed to be available with different outfits depending on your elemental stars. God mode is supposed to be unlocked after finishing the game, letting you customize certain elements like a developer mode would. Daily quests are supposed to be available, rewatchable in-game tutorials are as well. Tribute summoning is supposed to come up where you can summon stronger planos without having to directly evolve them from the version that came before. Save spots are supposed to be added. Right now there isn't a way to save at all in the review build, which kinda sucks and it makes it hard to really go out of your way and learn a lot of things, but this isn't the early access release yet, so I can kind of understand it. There's supposed to be at least 3 save spots, so I guess we'll see what happens, and more. Sadly in the roadmap though, the main story is a cool concept and not a must-do. This is nerve-wracking to see, and I hope it doesn't mean that the story aspect will be discarded depending on early access finances, especially since the Kickstarter states that it is 100% funded. I'll get back to you with this once I know more. As of right now though, the combat is fun but simple. Not being able to attack with any creature on your board and instead having to attack in order from left to right is something that is a little bit hard to get used to. There is a feature reminiscent of Heart of the Cards, where you can draw a card of your choosing once per battle, but it sadly doesn't work in the review build and instead made me have to close the game out entirely. I tried to do it multiple times, it just doesn't work. It says it should, it's not grayed out like other aspects that can't be used, but sadly there's nothing I could do. Anyway, your health in battle also counts as a sort of magic point system, so you can sacrifice health to use certain cards to deal more damage to your enemies and more. It's a risky venture though, and it does add a sense of strategy, but it isn't well realized within this build at all. The only challenge came from not drawing what I needed and willingly battling with the elements that I am weak to. So far I think with this build that the card battling does have some promise. It seems simplistic at first, but in an actual story setting, with more cards to add to your deck and mix and match with different types, with the challenge of AI enemies growing as the story unfolds, there's a lot to be optimistic about. But not knowing whether or not there's actually going to be an actual story within the game is a little bit iffy too. The game is supposed to be just like any other pixel art RPG, just like Pokemon, where you go around to different places and that's how you learn things. Right now in this build, you click on characters and you battle them one after the other, kind of like what you do in something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, where there's a lot of names of characters on the board. You hit one, they'll talk to you for a second, you choose to battle, you move to the next, you do it again. The actual full game isn't supposed to be like this, but I wasn't able to check out any type of exploration besides what I can click from one screen. Again, it's a review build, not an early access, so it is understandable and I can't be mad about it, but I have to go out of my way and tell you that because of this, I don't know how the game actually functions in a playable state. I just know how the deck building functions. If I get access to the game during early access, I will continue to keep you updated on it, as well as how it develops and how the game ends up being at the end. I am intrigued by what the story could be, how deep it may be willing to go, in a battle that pits brother against brother. The inspiration from things like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Kaijudo is something that's got me pretty hyped. I loved all three of those. I think Kaijudo is criminally underrated, and I really want this to do well, especially seeing how much it takes from properties that I really love, and tries to make it into something of its own. This is a single developer project as far as I know. So keep that in mind as well as you look at all the gameplay within this video and see things that happen throughout the future. There's going to be limitations when it's only one person, and he's been doing a lot of work in order to try to make this the game that he believes that it can be, and I have a lot of respect for that. With so many features not in this build though, the best I can do is tell you what I know, so if you learned anything then subscribe. Dislike if you disliked it, and for more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. Have a great day. Thank you.